Hello kinesiology students, this is Dr. Strath and welcome to this short tutorial on navigating scientific research articles. This is the first of 6 short presentations and you will by the end, hopefully, if not already, be in a great place to start navigating and synthesizing the scientific articles that you read. Hopefully by now you have completed the online tutorial from Purdue University and also read the short article by Hendrick and Thompson 2015 on how to read a research article, and hopefully this went well for you. This was to give you an introduction to the various parts of a scientific article and an introduction on the anatomy and how to read a scientific article. So this sequence of short videos will be a tutorial to follow on from what you know and what you've learned, to give you a look at a way that I think is perhaps a little bit more efficient and clearer on navigating scientific research articles. So hopefully what you are beginning to understand or beginning to see is that this skill is very important. What we know and what we understand to be the relationship between physical activity and health changes over time. So to be up to date on this topic, you will need to read recent research rather than learn about it secondhand or hear about it from others, such as in the media. While sometimes this is fine, it is better to go to the source and then you are interpreting what you read rather than relying on others' interpretations. So being able to read, understand, and translate this information becomes important. It helps you to be up to date on this topic. You become an informed consumer of the information on the science. How much activity should we be doing? Why should we be doing it? How should we be doing it? And the impact of various different forms of physical activity on the body and on our health. You can also help others understand, maybe if they don't know where to find the information or don't have the skill to be able to read, understand, and synthesize the information. Others may actually come to you and say, hey, what do you know about the relationship between physical activity and diabetes, for instance? Being able to take the information you read and translate to others is therefore highly important. Then, with the help of others, this information can lead to evidence-based practice, implementing the latest science to improve our health. If you go into a health profession's career, this becomes essential because what you implement should be grounded in the very latest science of understanding. And this is always evolving over time as we learn more and more about a particular topic. So why practice? Why do we need this module? Well, 1, this semester we'll be looking at a lot of scientific research articles. And 2, the amount of science that is published on this topic of physical activity and health is incredibly large. Hundreds of new research articles come out on a monthly basis. And 3, to remain an informed consumer, you will need to keep up with the current research that is published, which again can be a lot. So knowing that time is a commodity, you need to develop a method to read quickly, decipher if the information is good, extract and catalog the necessary information so you have it on hand whenever you may need it. If I said to you, you should try and read 10 scientific research articles a week, but it takes you more than an hour to read one, and then another hour to write down key information from that, that's almost 20 hours. That's almost a part-time job just to keep up with the science. So this is a skill. We will work on this, and I promise this is something that with practice gets easier and easier and should not really be a big demand on your valuable time. So hopefully by now you know how not to approach reading an article. That is like reading a novel from the start to the end. And by doing so, it's very easy to get lost. It takes a lot of time. So by learning tips and tricks from others who do this all the time can be highly beneficial. So to give you an example, I still continue to this day to read a minimum of 3 scientific research articles each and every day on average. So hopefully now you know why this is important and how not to approach reading a scientific article. What we will accomplish in this mini module is to briefly go over the anatomy of a scientific article and the different components. Then describe different approaches to reading a scientific article and introduce you to perhaps a more efficient approach, and then with my help we'll practice this. We will walk through a research article together, look at it, and navigate extracting key information and summarizing what we read. So hopefully this slide is not new to you. This was presented on the Purdue online tutorial as well as in the brief reading on how to read a scientific article. So you can pause the video in a moment and look over this slide and familiarize yourself with this again. The only thing I would like to do is spend a moment on that very first box, journal information. This seems such a simple thing, but it warrants a moment of thought. And when you are ready, we can discuss that very first box. So, where are you getting your research from? What is the quality of the work? These are good things to ponder, because if you are going to spend your valuable time to find and read and synthesize the information, you need to know it's credible, right? So how do we do that? Well, we do that by judging the work by where it is and the process it has undergone in order to be published. Most published works have undergone what we call a scientific review. This is the authors submitting their work to a journal, and that journal soliciting 2 to 3 experts in the field to evaluate the work, critique the work, request modifications to the work, or just blankly reject it for publication because there were too many scientific flaws in the work. A journal that publishes work will then slowly build up a scientific reputation, and we can evaluate this. It's not the easiest to evaluate, but we can try. How is the journal ranked in its discipline? What is the circulation rate of the journal? Is the journal indexed and searchable in search engines? What is the impact factor of the journal? The impact factor is a measure of the frequency with which the average article in a journal has been cited in a particular year. So basically, if it is never cited, then maybe the impact is not that great. All such measures have strengths and weaknesses, but it's definitely worth evaluating the journal reputation. If you would like to learn more about this, for instance, look up the following question: what is an impact factor for a scientific journal? And do a little digging about journal quality. In the Purdue Library's online presentation, they presented this as a way to work your way through reading a scientific research paper. So if you would like to pause this and look at this again, please do so. This is certainly one approach. I won't be spending any more time on this, however, and when you unpause, we can move on. So the way I approach reading a scientific article is a little different, although similar to others I am sure, and in fact in conversation I have found that Dr. Close in the department and I read in identical ways, so you will see a call out on some of these slides to Dr. Close. So similarities with what you know may be, but also potentially some differences. So my approach, first and foremost, the journal itself. Quality, impact, reputation. This is something though that you will inherently learn over time as you read more and more papers from different scientific journals. So this is an approach that works best for me, and you will see we jump around a little bit to different sections of the scientific paper. You should try different ways, but for now we are going to try this method in this tutorial. So the way I approach it, after journal quality determination, is to start with the abstract. A quick skim to pull out the key information, purpose, aim, or hypothesis, the results, and the key findings. And this really should just be a 30-second skim. And ask yourself the question, is this relevant to me? Is this going to be what I thought it was going to be? If yes, then jump into the last paragraph of the introduction. Many introductions are between 3 to 5 paragraphs long, not always, but most of the time. Jump to the very last. In this paragraph of the last one of the introduction, the authors should explicitly explain their purpose, what they are setting out to accomplish or question in this paper, and why they are doing it. So by jumping to this section, you should know right away what they are setting out to do. Okay, great, I'm still interested. Now, if you go from here to the first paragraph of the discussion, it will essentially summarize the whole paper. The first paragraph in the discussion typically will reiterate the purpose of the study. It will also reveal the main findings of the study, or what they found. So in these two paragraphs, the last of the introduction and the first of the discussion, you can glean an awful lot of information about this particular paper. Now from here I go to the methods. This is like looking under the hood of a car, looking at the nuts and bolts into how they conducted this particular study, and on who specifically. You should be able to critique these methods or this methodology. Is this the best way to do it? Why did they do it this way? Now, if the methods are weak, you may start to question the findings. Are they by chance? Maybe they're biased because of the methods chosen. You are deciding at this point, do I continue? From here, I will go to the results. And now for me, I typically will focus on tables and figures only at this point. All tables and figures should be standalone, meaning I should not have to read anything other than what is in that table or figure to fully understand the result. If I am liking what I am reading at this point, I may well jump into the written results if something is not quite clear. Now from here I'm all in, and I may go back and revisit the full introduction and from there the full discussion, just to see why the authors proposed this new particular study and what the authors thought of their work and in what context to other work in the field. These sections can be informative and very interesting, especially as you start out in the scientific reading area. The discussion, for instance, is the author's interpretations of their own findings and what they think they mean in the bigger picture. Now, I said, for me, I may go back. The more of a consumer you are, the more you read, the more expert you are in a topical area, the less you have to go back and revisit the introduction and discussion. For you at this stage, I do highly recommend that you do this. But for me, for instance, I very rarely go back and reread or revisit the introduction and discussion. But this is a way that when I read, I can go through a full paper, reading it, understanding it in approximately 3 minutes or less. And with practice, this is how fast you can become also. So rather than read a paper like a novel from start to finish, the full detailed introduction on to the methodology, which can be quite technical, at which point maybe frustration sets in. I don't understand this method. I don't understand the statistics used at all. What in the world does this figure mean in the results? Your frustrations may rise and you may start to burn out. Try the above. Jump around to the pertinent parts. This is the approach I would like to walk you through, and so to make these videos more manageable, I did break them up for this tutorial. And in the next video, part 2, we are going to start this process, and I will take you slowly through an example.